So welcome, Dr. Kak. It is wonderful to have you and wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you, Vandana. I'm glad to be a part of this conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, because of this coronavirus, we have a lot of time on our hands. So I thought that if there is some way I can get you online and talk to you about some of your personal things, because we read so much knowledge from you, we read so much information coming from you, but I wanted us to talk to you about yourself, your life. Like you said, we have some gupshup. So, I was hoping that we can talk some personal stuff about you, about your life, about your likes, about how it was.
Sure.
Good. So how is the coronavirus thing going along? I mean, the social distancing, how is that working out for you?
Well, we live in Oklahoma, but a month ago we had come down to Miami where our children live for just a few days. And at the end of it, the whole panic related to coronavirus became big. So our children said, now don't go back. First of all, flying is not very safe right now.
Yeah.
So we decided to stay on. So we are here in Miami in Coconut Grove, taking long walks in the mornings and evenings, and just eating a lot of food and calling up friends and just chatting about everything.
Very nice, very nice. Some, silver lining, right?
Right.
Good. Very good. So are you teaching online?
No, I'm not teaching.
You're not teaching. Okay. All right. So Dr. Kak, tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I was born in Kashmir, in Sri Lanka, and my father was a veterinarian. So every 2 years, he would be transferred from one place to another. So I lived in very many small towns in both Jammu and Kashmir, and also spent 2 years in Ladakh in middle school. So a lot of places didn't form any friendships in school because we would stay and then leave. And saw a lot of places in the valley and outside of the valley as well. We are a total of 5 siblings, and now 4 of the 5 of us live in the US. And I have a sister who lives in Delhi, but her own daughters live, one in the US and one in UK. So all over the place now, like everybody else.
That's true. Yeah, we are also scattered, right? Yeah. What is your fondest memory of Kashmir?
Well, Kashmir is, of course, very beautiful. The summers, but winters were also frightfully cold.
Yeah.
And what one would do in the 3 or 4 months of winter would be just be wrapped up in those kumbals and just sit and read. And look outside of the window at the street scenes. So did a lot of that. And especially in Ladakh, where it was so extremely cold and our houses were drafty, that even waking up was quite a scary thing to do in the mornings in winter. So all of that.
Getting out of the Razai was it?
Getting out of the Razai. You didn't want to.
Yeah. Did you have those, what do you call them, Bukharas or no?
Yeah. We had Bukharis or Bukharas or Bukhari.
Yeah.
Bukharis, and in Ladakh, we wore Ladakhi clothes.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah.
And
they have something they carry inside, right? Like the coals. What is it called?
Hungry.
Oh, okay.
Hungry. Kangri.
Oh, okay. Kangri.
Yeah. So we all used Kangris with live coals. Yeah.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun.
Very interesting. Were you a naughty child, or were you like a rule following? Or
possibly. I was sort of rule following. Leave me alone, child.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone with my books, child. Basically that. But I also played games. I did everything. I did outdoor games. Later on I played chess, ping pong, whatever, all kind of stuff. Did a lot of hiking, and was always trying to write books.
Yeah.
Even when I was very young. Yes.
Oh, even when you were very young, you were right. Nice. When did you go back last?
I was last in Kashmir in 1986 for a week.
Mhm.
I was I think UNDP fellow
Mhm.
visiting India, and in that visit, I also spent a week in Delhi. Well, in Srinagar. I
Mhm.
also went to Srinagar. I saw the old places and houses and this and that, and I went for a week and went to my old college and saw relatives. But that's a long time ago, 86, and that was before the bad things happened in Kashmir. As you know, in 1990 January,
Mhm.
the Kashmiri Hindus were driven out of the valley. So, but one could see some signs of that,
Mhm.
signs of that things were not normal, that there were people who did not look at us, for example, kindly, so
Mhm.
that there's something going on in the psyche of the people at that time.
Mhm.
So clearly, all of that had taken some time to build up,
Mhm.
and then it boiled over, as we know, in 89 and in early 90.
So you were not, none of your family was there at that time.
No, I was already in the US. I came away permanently to the US in 1979, a long time ago. My
And
parents were living in in Delhi,
mhm.
and my other siblings were already out in the US.
We will do something now. We'll do like a rapid fire. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm gonna throw some words at you, and you say whatever first comes to your mind. Okay,
Okay.
shall we start?
Sure.
Okay, so the first word is time.
Time. What is time? Time is, of course, how we measure our life. Because who are we? We are a bunch of memories, right? When we look into our minds, and our mind is our memories and the way we connect these memories, and these memories of course also change each time you recall a memory. It changes, and therefore time affects us so differently in different at different times in our lives, at different points in our lives. And uh, and and you also feel that you don't have infinite time. Although, if you recall that famous dialogue between Yudhishthir and the Yaksha in
Mhm.
the Mahabharata, where um, the Yaksha asks Yudhishthir, "What is the most astonishing thing in life?" And if he doesn't give the right answer, he's going to die. So Yudhishthir says the most astonishing thing in this world is that every individual believes that he's going to be on this earth forever,
Mm.
and that is true. So that even though there is finite time, we each one of us believes that we are here forever.
Yeah, possibly something to do about with the self, right? Because there's some part of us telling us that there is something in us that is eternal, maybe.
No, that's a great point. Possibly because if we look at our true self, that self is immortal. It's shashvat, right? It's eternal. So that's a brilliant point.
Yeah,
So true. I think that's what we sort of attach ourselves to,
yeah.
without knowing
Without,
why we think we are
yeah,
here forever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Knowledge.
What is knowledge? Well, there are two ways of looking at knowledge. Right now, in colleges and universities and the American system, education system, or let's call it the Western education system, you're told that knowledge is information and that mind is a vessel to be filled. So you go to college and they give you a lot of data, facts, and then once your courses are over, you forget all of them. While the Indian view of knowledge is somewhat different. The Indian view is that mind is a lamp to be lit, so it's a flame, and knowledge, therefore, is what that flame can be used to see,
Mm.
and therefore that flame gives you a certain insight which doesn't change, which is not dependent on that mass of data which you learn in courses or through television. And therefore, um, uh, if a person has this kind of knowledge, I would say it would be easy for such a person to navigate oneself through the uncertainties of modern life, or uncertainties of any life. The other thing is that knowledge as information is in a certain sense so obsolete, so yesterday. So I think part of the crisis that Western societies are facing is related to this difference in looking at knowledges. And in fact, many of the college courses fill up the student with a lot of resentments about something in the present or about the past. And therefore, people who come out with this college experience, rather than being able to relate to all the problems that each of us, each human being must confront, is not able to see them with the clarity that is required, which is the reason why you see a lot of young people who are so unhappy. How else could you explain that about 60 to 70,000 Americans, good looking in their prime of life, are killing themselves with opioid overdose, right? So people are deeply unhappy. They're deeply unhappy because the way the mass media and education, formal education and entertainment, what they tell everybody about who they are is so totally wrong. So this, I think, is a great crisis. And this crisis will be made worse by the permanent disappearance of jobs that is bound to occur due to pervasive automation. So jobs will go away. And in fact, this current coronavirus crisis would hasten some of these transformations. Some jobs will go away due to the shock that this closure of howsoever many weeks the world remains closed is going to deliver to so many different sectors of the economy.
Next one, poetry.
Poetry. When I was young, in my teens, I wanted to be a poet, and I've been writing poetry all my life, as you know. And my mom, who was a very practical person, she says, "No way, I'm going to send you off to an engineering college, and you have to do it because that's how you make money." So my mom backed me off to engineering, and then after I started teaching, I went back to poetry, and I've gone to poetry many times, and I've written several books of poetry, both in English and in Hindi, and it's always remained one of my great loves. Language, that is, in all languages. In other words, whatever poetry in whatever original language, I've read a lot of it, thought about it, because as was told to us by the Indian tradition, the Kavi is the guy who is able to communicate secrets of reality much better than anybody else, because the poet can use analogies, can use metaphors, can use similes, can use so many different ways by going across different layers, which somebody who uses prose or mathematics cannot do. And since reality is not single dimensional, it's multidimensional, it occurs simultaneously at so many different layers, some of which are contradictory. So poetry, of all the mediums of expression, poetry comes closest to it. Of course, and there's another one, namely music, but poetry and music do go together.
Yeah. Also, it speaks to the heart.
Right, it speaks to the heart, but the best prose is also poetic. The best of anything is poetic, or where you're looking at the very large and looking at the contradictions which are fundamental to reality, fundamental to the lived experience.
Bollywood.
I haven't seen very many Hindi movies recently, especially after I came to the US. I don't actually watch too many movies. Yeah, so I'm not very knowledgeable. I've seen some of the more famous ones.
Yeah.
So not very knowledgeable.
Not very much. Okay. So artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I know those are two big things. So what comes to mind? What would be like?
AI, people are terrified that machines will eventually become conscious. And if computers become conscious, they won't have any need for us because they would be so much more reliable, right? So this is a big dilemma faced by the world. And there are some scientists who believe that computers will become conscious. I don't think so. I don't think that will happen. But even if computers don't become conscious, computers will be used increasingly in decision making. And therefore, in some sense, humanity will get enslaved by machines. That is a problem. And in fact, some of the decisions that are being taken right now to deal with coronavirus have been taken at the top. We don't know at this point whether this is the best thing to do because there are certain countries like Japan who don't have a quarantine, who are still open. So now this here, at least each person can sense the dangers that are involved because of the disease and because of how it can be terrible for some people. But computers could also take other decisions which take agency away from us, which take freedom away from us.
That is the fear, yeah.
So that is the fear. Now, the second question was quantum computers. Yeah, well, there's a big race to build quantum computers amongst the richer countries. And the premise there is that quantum computers will be much more powerful than current day computers. But and this is a field in which I've worked for many years. I don't think quantum computers will ever be built. So this is something that nations will continue to invest money in, and there will be some other advantages to that. Some fundamental science will be created. So to that extent, it's good. But I don't think classical machines are going to be made obsolete by quantum machines. What computers do is, or in quantum mechanics, the output is a sum of all possibilities at the same time. And when you interact with the output, you can get things at random sometimes. But if quantum computers were to be built, and there is a mathematical theory which shows that they can be built, the problem is not in the mathematical theory. The problem is in the hardware implementation. There are some fundamental problems with hardware implementation, which would make it impossible to actually build them beyond toy hardware. You know, you can show that 3 times 3 is 9, but nothing more substantial than that.
Understood. Okay. So, Dr. Kak, tell me 2 of your favorite books.
2 of my favorite books. Well, what kind of books?
Anything, whatever comes to your mind first, doesn't matter.
Well, there is one Indian book which I recommend to everybody, which I believe is the smartest or cleverest novel ever written. Ooh. It's called Yoga Vasishtha. It's about 1,000 years old.
Yes.
It's wonderful stories in stories. So that's a great book. And one other book. I haven't been reading fiction lately, although I've read a huge amount of European and American. The Tin Drum by Gunter Grass. That was a good book too. That is a novel.
Drum. Okay.
Tin Drum.
Okay.
And that's good. Okay, that makes it 2. So I've answered your question.
Okay. 2 favorite movies. Doesn't matter, Hindi, English.
I had to really think about it. I liked a lot of movies, very, very good movies. Hindi as well, Hindi and English, but
nothing comes to mind right away.
On this, I need advance notice.
Okay. All right. Okay. And same thing with songs as well? Favorite songs?
Well, I liked there are lots of very, very good songs. You know, Chitra Singh, Jagjit Singh.
Yeah.
Talat Mahmood, and so many of them. Lata Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle,
There's too
everybody.
many for you to pick one.
Yeah. So many wonderful
All
songs.
right. I think we're just 1 minute before the meeting shuts. If it doesn't, that would be great. But if it does, then it was such a pleasure, Dr. Kak, talking to you. And also, belated happy birthday.
Thank you, Vandana ji. Really enjoyed being on this show. Let it be a show now.
Okay.
I'm sorry there were these technical
I
glitches,
know.
but
I'm sorry.
hopefully, hopefully you'd be able to find out why this
Why
happened.
this is happening. Yeah. So quickly, Dr. Kak, before you leave, what would be your advice for youth of today?
The advice would be to get connected to some classical tradition, to be devoted to excellence. And that is something that's not been done, especially in India, for some time. And it generally runs in families, which is why you would see it's not that people don't get, or get different kind of education in school or college. But ultimately, that part of it is related to something within the individual. So you've got to be devoted to excellence in whatever way it might be. You've got to love something in terms of wanting to do it and achieve it. And it's only when one aims at the stars that you can even reach the top of a mountain. If you're not even looking high, then where will you go?
So true. Very true. Very true. And what changes do you think we'll see in our world in the coming decades? Of course, with artificial intelligence, you already said that. You already mentioned. All right. Bye. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Oh, no, again. Yes. All right, Dr. Kak. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Namaste.